Makai Lemon continues to just be incredible. He had 11 catches for 151 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he might not be just the best receiver in college football, but I mean he's on the short list of the very best players in college football. And I think I go way back to I didn't watch Keyshawn at USC, but I remember Kerry Colbert, I remember Mike Williams, I remember Dwayne Jarrett, I remember Steve Smith, I remember Robert Woods, I remember Marquise Lee, I remember Juju, Nelson Aguilar, I remember, and of course the Clay Helton recruits, St. Brown and Drake London and Michael Pittman, um, all those guys. And out of all those guys, I think Makai Lemon might be the most complete that I've seen at USC while they were in college. He just does everything so well. And through 5 games, he has 589 yards and 5 touchdowns, so well over 100 yards per game receiving for him. Jacoby Lane played, but he was limited. I think he had 4 catches for 38 yards, somewhere around there. And I think he was mostly getting his licks in the red zone. But it is what it's what it is. Wayman Jordan had 20 carries for 94 yards. But I mentioned that fumble that led to the Illinois touchdown. Even though the fumble, like I said, it was in Illinois territory, so they still have to drive. But he's having a great year. As I said, he's the best. I mean, take this with a grain of salt because I don't know every, transfer JUCO transfer running back to USC has had in the last, let's say, 55 years. But as far as I know, he's the best. Since O.J. Simpson, right? I don't know if there's been a better one than Raymond Jordan, and he's been playing great. He's got 537 yards and 4 touchdowns through 5 games, so he's averaging over 100 yards per game. I think what it comes down to is that USC they're good, but they're still a work in progress. They're well balanced and they're well coached, but their talent is not yet overwhelming. So the margin for error that they have is it's not what it may be like next year and in the coming years when they get that number one recruiting class in there next year. And Lincoln Riley just gets more time to develop, the players that he actually recruited to the program, and gets to develop the players that that he has coming in, and especially now that they're recruiting California again. So, so like last week against Michigan State, they were at home. Jacoby Lane didn't play, and they were still able to take care of business. They're 17.5-point favorites. This week, they're only 4.5-point favorites. They were on the road. They're against an Illinois team that had just lost 63-10 in Indiana, so you knew that they were going to be at home, and they're going to want to bounce back and put on a good performance to get a victory. And they played physical. They played well. They did what they had to do. They're able to, Illinois was able to get the victory. I think that you're talking about USC, so USC, Ohio State, Alabama, historically, USC is on the very top tier of college football programs of all time. So if you wouldn't expect Ohio State or Alabama to lose to Illinois when they're at their best, then you shouldn't expect USC to lose to Illinois either. But USC is not. We know what USC's best looks like, and that's what the Pete Carroll teams that I grew up, came up watching, um, they had margin for error. They could go on the road and maybe play sloppy, have some turnovers, kind of lollygagging around for the first half or whatever, and still come out on top because they had so much talent. This USC team, this USC team is not even. They're not as talented as the 2022 team, the first team Lincoln Riley had in his first year here. And they're also, I would say, they're probably not as talented as the best Clay Helton teams, the Sam Darnold Clay Helton teams. Um, they're better coached for sure. Nothing against Clay Helton, it just is what it is. This is a well coached USC team. They look good out there. They don't, you know, but they have to you just have to get deeper, and get back to the point where you just go, oh my goodness, right? They have a very efficient offense, and people keep calling it explosive, but it's just more like a well-oiled machine. They have Makai, who, he didn't play as well today as he had been playing, but I look at him kind of like I don't think he has as much. Obviously he's a different build and a different type of looking player on the field than Caleb Williams. But I would say, for comparison's sake, he's probably not as talented. Yet, the way Caleb Williams can throw the ball is incredible. I would say that he's just as good though at extending plays with his legs. Almost impossible to sack. But probably not the arm talent of Caleb Williams. But for sure more talented than Miller Moss. And I would say even his decision making has been better this year. Has been better than Miller Moss's was last year. So he's played well, right? You can't knock him for one game where he still threw for 364 yards and a couple touchdowns, and led his team back, although he had help, from Illinois to do that. And then they lost at the end. It's not the end of the world, but I mean, it's like they have him, and they have obviously I mentioned Makai Lemon, one of the very best players in the country. They have Jacoby Lane, who, when healthy, one of the best wide receivers in the country. Wayman Jordan, I mentioned him. He's been absolutely fantastic. And, like I said, Dan Tomlin does a great job coaching the defense. He gets a lot of what he has to work with. They don't have that, and the offensive line looks better, as a unit. The defensive line looks better. The issue is that this is not a situation where you have, this is not like back when Pete was coaching, where you had, 10 guys who were going to get drafted, and 6 of them were going to get drafted in the first 2 rounds. This is not that. They certainly have some guys who are going to be drafted. Makai Lemon will be, first round, if not the very first receiver taken in the draft. Jacoby Lane should go in the first 2 rounds. I think Jade Maava has made himself a draftable player. And Wayman Jordan also at running back. But it's just not that type of overwhelming, embarrassment of riches of talent that it's like when USC is at their best, whether you're talking about Pete Carroll's days, you're talking about the John Robinson days, talking about the John McKay days, the Howard Jones days. That's what makes USC when they're USC, right? But they're not at that point yet. Which is why in a game like today, they didn't really play well. They still had a chance to win. But if Lincoln Riley ever gets the thing really rolling, this will be a game that they can come out there and not really play well and probably still win by 2 touchdowns. Because it's just Illinois. This is not, come on. It's like, it's Illinois football. USC should not be losing to that. And then so after this, USC has a bye week. Then they return on October 11th to face Michigan at home, followed by Notre Dame in South Bend. So Michigan at the Coliseum, then Notre Dame on the road. And it's like, okay, if we couldn't stop Khalil Valentine, he had 7.4 yards per carry today. How are we going to stop Justice Haynes, one of the best running backs in America for Michigan, and Jeremiah Love, one of the best players in the country at Notre Dame? And I think that's why this loss sucks, because you have to get you got to take care of the Illinois, and you can't lose to them when you still have to face Michigan, you still have to face Notre Dame, you still have to face Oregon. You know, um, it's just you're making it harder on yourself if your goal is, as it is, which it is to make the college football playoff.